Everybody is doing well and enjoying this fine fall weather. I know that I'm enjoying it. That is for sure. It is definitely some good weather here in Durham, North Carolina. Definitely some cooler temperatures than we were having during the summer and all along those lines. So always good to have the fall weather, even though I am a summer child, meaning I was born in July and definitely do quite a bit of festivals in the summer as well. But definitely it's good to have some fall-like weather and some cooler weather, but you never can tell. An Indian summer may be around the corner or something along those lines, and it could change in a heartbeat because we do know that the weather can be a fickle kind of atmosphere and all along those lines. So we're going to see how things play out and what goes on in that way. But definitely glad to see that folks are enjoying the weather. Definitely living around the corner from Duke University. I see quite a few folks that are out there getting their walk on, sometimes walking the dog or going out as they walk as a couple or whatever. So definitely it has been some interesting and lovely weather. And of course, the Cultural Arts Center that I work at, the Hayti Heritage Center, has been keeping busy with a number of activities. As a matter of fact, I just heard that there might be a theater group doing some practice there in the near future. And of course, we have our regular poetry slam. We had a group of folks that did a candlelight type concert. It's one of those candlelight concerts that has taken place nationally and all along those lines. But they were doing this one. They did one previously that I think was a salute to Stevie Wonder or one of the other great musicians. And this one was actually one of the kind of like movies of like childhood fare. I think it was like Legends of Zelda or something like that. And they had some classical musicians that came and performed this past Friday. I might have them come on a upcoming show and share some of their experiences as well. And of course, we have our regular poetry slam, and there is a celebration of the 50th anniversary of hip hop that is currently up there as well. So we do know that this is the 50th year of hip hop. Hard to believe that hip hop is 50 years old, only 11 years younger than myself, and all along those lines. So yes, hip hop has been around for a number of years, and there were probably some people that said hip hop would never make it and it wouldn't make it past its initial stage and all along those lines. But they have definitely proven them wrong and all in that space. So I'm going to bring in some amazing guests that I've got, and we're going to just talk about life and things that are going on in their life and with what they've got going on and all along those lines. So I'll start off with the first guest and bring in Miss Heidi and see how Heidi is doing and all along those lines. So how are you doing, Heidi, and how is life treating you, and where are you coming in from, and share a little bit about your story here on the online dinner party, because we love having amazing guests and just sharing what we're up to and what's going on in our world.
Hi, Mark. First of all, thank you so much for having me with you today. I'm really excited to be here with you. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. So thank you very much.
No problem at all. Just for the listening audience, share a little bit about yourself, and then I'll bring in some of the other guests as well. Like I said, it's just a casual conversation. We talk about life journeys, life missions, and a lot of the things that we are advocating in the various ways. So if you'll share a little bit about what you've got going on, I'm sure that the listening audience would love to hear that.
Sure, I'd love to. And I want to just share that I'm a July baby too. So we have that in common. I am a business strategy coach. I live in South Florida. I was born and raised here, so I'm a Florida native. I have two children. My son he'll be 13 in a month, and my daughter's 14. And I started working in the online space going through divorce. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I got to figure out how to take care of me and my two kids and my home and my animals. And the journey just evolved into now I help women build businesses online to create the life that they want to create for themselves and their families.
That makes a lot of sense. I don't have any children of my own, but I do have two nephews, and they're actually only a year older than yours, because my nephews are 14 and 15. They turned that back in August. So they are now 14 and 15 years old. And my brother actually is involved in the space of working with at-risk youth and doing conflict resolutions and a lot of things in those lines. So definitely I can relate. And like I said, I never did the whole marriage thing. I think he took all the significant spouses because he's been married twice and is with his lady love now, and they've been together for a number of years and probably would have already been married, but those things called health concerns on both of their parts, because she is a transplant survivor. She's actually got a new heart and all along those lines, and my brother has been dealing with some stuff around MS, but eventually they'll still go ahead and get married and all along those lines. So definitely looking forward to that day whenever it comes around and everything. But definitely definitely that whole balancing thing is part of the conversation that we even talk about here on this show as well. So if you can just share a little bit about that balance, and then we'll bring in one of the other guests or a couple of the other guests as well, because I know in the show in general, we oftentimes talk about the work-life balance and how to create that work-life balance as well.
Yeah, that was what actually one of the things I got to learn along my journey. Because when I first started, I was building a business, and I thought the harder I worked, the further I would get. And actually, it was the opposite, because I was working 2 jobs, building my business, and also taking them to school, running them to activities, and trying to be here for them as I was before. I didn't want anything to change for them, even though we were divorced now. And they have a fantastic father. Their father is involved, so that's wonderful. But just financially, I was trying to hold it all together and juggling a lot of different things. And then I realized that by trying to hold everything together and doing it all wasn't working. So really learning how to bring in self-care. And I know for women, we are nurturers. So we like to take care of everybody else versus ourselves. And once I started bringing in self-care, and I actually started fitting my business into my life versus my life into my business, that's when I started seeing huge shifts. So for the women that are listening, if you're feeling like you're overwhelmed and juggling it all, really take some time, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, to focus on you and fill your cup up, because it's really important in order to serve everyone else around us. It's really important that we're filling ourselves up first.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We do have another gentleman that will be joining us very shortly as well. Before we get to the other gentleman, I'm going to bring in another one of the young ladies as well. So we've got Sarah Wilson. I want to hear her story also. So we can just hear a little bit about what Sarah's got going on and all along those lines. So how are you doing, Sarah? Share a little bit about what you've got going on in your life and all along those lines.
For a podcast. That's such a neat idea to just get all of the people together. I really, really am enjoying that. It's very neat. I am married, mom to 3. I have 18, 13, and 11. Depends on what day. My 18-year-old really gives me a run for my money. My 13-year-old is hanging in, and my 11-year-old is still my cuddler. So I have kind of a balance of all of it. I'm a type 1 diabetic on an insulin pump. I'm a heart attack survivor. I had a heart attack 6 days before my 43rd birthday. Heidi, you were talking about self-care. That is a big part of what I'm trying to get out there, because I never saw it coming. I had no symptoms, and I was running myself ragged and taking care of everybody else. And I think it's such a great point you bring up, that as moms, as nurturers, we're not going to have much left to give if we don't take care of ourselves. So I really think it's great what you're doing and finding balance with that. I'm out here in Southern California, so I don't know about the fall weather. We kind of have the same kind of weather all year long, but that's great. I'm sure the colors are fabulous on the East Coast. My middle child is a July baby as well, so lots of summer fun there. And I recently relaunched my podcast. I had started a podcast in 2019, and it was there was no direction. My husband and I just decided to do it for fun, and it didn't really go anywhere. So then COVID happened, then we moved, and then we moved back. And I was like, after having my heart attack, I just want to share, the struggles that I've had as a woman, and just taking care of yourself and what you can do with that. And that's where I'm at.
No, and Sarah, what you were saying was really resonating on a couple of ways. One, it was because of various heart problems is the reason that my brother's significant other had that heart transplant. And like I said, I think she's now had it for at least a year, maybe a year and a half, the new heart, and all along those lines. But it was because of having a long history of that, is that she was on the donor list, finally got the heart that she needed, and is now doing quite well in terms of recovery and all along those lines. And then you also mentioned being a diabetic, and even the juvenile diabetes can be very interesting as well, because they are doing that blended family kind of thing. I joke with them that it's kind of like the Brady Bunch, because he's got his 2, my 2 nephews, and she's got 2, an older daughter that is in college right now. She's in college, and then the son is in high school, if I remember correctly. But the daughter that's in college is also a diabetic, so she has to do the whole insulin thing. And
is she type 1 or type 2?
I think she's type 1.
The juvenile. Mm-hmm. That's what I am too. Yeah. And that, just really quick in and of itself, for people that don't know, type 1 basically means your pancreas no longer works. There's no function. It's basically a dead organ that sits inside of you. So you have to externally take insulin to make all of the other organs and things operate, right? Type 2 is more related to exercise and diet. And I've actually witnessed a lot of people who have been diagnosed with type 2 actually reverse by eating the right things and exercising the right way. Unfortunately, with type 1, because it's autoimmune and there's not anything at the moment, I know they're experimenting with islets and things like that, but at the moment there is no cure. And with me being on a pump, that absolutely helps, and it helps more regulation than having to do injections and things like that. But juvenile is no joke. It's very serious.
Yeah, definitely very serious. And like I said, I've had some friends that have dealt with a number of health issues, including some that have dealt with heart issues and other things along those lines. So it's definitely something that I can relate to and understand, and all in that space. I want to bring in one of our other guests. It's one of the other guys' guests at everything. And I've got one more lady that'll be coming on the screen as well. But Devon is going to be joining us as well. So Devon, if you'll share a little bit about what you've got going on as well. Because I've been telling everybody, it's just an online dinner party where I invite folks on. We share our journeys and our lives and all along those lines.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is really exciting. I can already feel how powerful both of you women are. So I'm super excited just to share this space. I'm Devon. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and entrepreneur. I'm based out of California. What kind of propelled me into becoming an author was I took in my 4 nieces and nephews, and it just kind of shook my world. So, I didn't have kids before that. I had no experience really other than babysitting. My 4 nieces and nephews were just in a situation that they needed someone to, step in. And so me and my mom banded together and decided that we were going to take all 4 of them and just change our life. And kids just really have that way of just transforming the way you think and the way that you operate. And writing a book was something that I always wanted to do and never believed I could do it. And when I finally had them with me, it was like the motivation I needed to not only motivate me, but motivate them and kind of show them, if you have a dream and you want to accomplish it, go out and do it. And so, yeah, that's kind of where my journey started. But
yeah, it sounds like a fantastic journey. Just out of curiosity, is the book a children's book, or is it an adult book, or is it one that is more in the children's lanes?
It's a children's book. So the idea was when I told them about the idea of writing the book, they were all excited, and really I wanted to write it together with them so that it was a way for us to bond and connect. So something that kind of started as a small idea, as we were writing it and as we finished it, I kind of got to the point where I was like, I don't know what to do from here. My partner stepped in and was able to connect with some of our friends who was connected to a hybrid publisher. We set up a meeting, and they loved the idea of just our story and what we wanted to do with the children's book. So they helped us and just, guided us along the way. And that kind of just bridged the gap for everything else that, we're kind of doing now. But yeah, it's a children's book. So
definitely just along those same lines and everything. And then we'll bring in probably our final guest, Alison, very shortly, and all along those lines. But creativity, and I used to be part of, and I've rediscovered them because I knew the gentleman prior to Clubhouse, but I rediscovered them through Clubhouse, a gentleman named IPC, who is a former George Lucas disciple, and he has this audio troupe called Funky Eye Puppets, and I was a member of the Funky Eye Puppets. It was like an audio theater group, and all along those lines that existed on Clubhouse and all in that space. It still is out there. I need to get back in touch with them and get reconnected, and there are a number of side projects that are also taking place. But one of the things we were talking about is how we as humans lose our creativity and our childlike wonder, and all along those lines. So I just wonder all of your thoughts around that, because I do know that sometimes we are so quick to want adulthood, they call it being that adult and having to deal with those bills and all along those lines, that we forget about the childlike wonder that can be part of our being as well. So I'd love to hear all 3 of your thoughts around, are we doing enough to encourage our children's creativity? Anybody? Heidi?
Oh, work on that. Well, my children teach me a lot about creativity, and just like they'll say stuff. And my son is ADHD, but he's very intelligent, but he can be a little disorganized. So we work on that, and we try to have fun, create fun ways for him to get more organized, because he could get very stressed out and very emotional when things aren't perfect for him. That being said, he makes me laugh all the time, because the words that come out of his mouth, his vocabulary is really strong. And so they teach me a lot about creativity. I think we can learn a lot from children, just like Devon was saying, that they can teach us as adults a lot about revisiting and reconnecting with our child, our inner child, and incorporating more play. One thing that I do, especially when moving through fear, is if I'm nervous about doing something, whether it's going live or putting something new out there, I'll blast my music and I'll start dancing around the house, and I'll bring back that movement and that play in order to help me move past that fear and through it. So those are just some of the things I do.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd love to hear Sarah's thoughts and Devon's as well. But just to let folks know, one of the groups that I used to be involved with, and they're actually going to be doing a couple of leadership panels around what they did as well. But as many folks know, there was this whole daybreaker movement that existed before the pandemic, where people would have those day parties and all along those lines. And they actually went online during the pandemic, and I actually joined them a couple of times. And yes, I even danced in this lovely space and did yoga in this lovely space and all along those lines, because it was really fun to have that engagement with folks globally and all in that kind of way. So it was just enjoyable, and definitely the organizers of that are still trying to show some of the things that they learned even during the pandemic, even though they're now back out doing the daybreakers and the out in the public and all along those lines. But it's just very fascinating seeing how that leadership was tied in and folks just dancing their joy, to your point, Heidi. Sarah, your thoughts around the childlike wonder and whether we're doing enough to encourage our children? You definitely mentioned you are a mom as well.
Yes. So, and we homeschool. And I will say, I think it's exposing them to as much as you possibly can to see what they might gravitate towards, to then harness that and encourage them to do that. Right. So like last week, we went to a pottery class. They actually got to mold the clay and use the wheel and make, and my one daughter wanted absolutely nothing to do with it after it was over. She's very tactile, and she didn't like how it was feeling in the mess, and she was completely over it. Surprisingly, my son, when he sat down, I thought he was going to be the one to not like it, and he absolutely loved it. It was something that he wanted to do again. He made this beautiful bowl and plate. I mean, and it was very surprising. So I think kids are innately, they have unique perspectives. They are not jumbled with, like what you were saying, bills and responsibilities. So their mind is just open to absorb anything that's around them in a very honest way. So I think the more that we can expose whatever that might be, art, reading, right, anything that they can gravitate towards, and just encourage them, once they find that niche that they really want to explore, just sort of, gently push them in that direction to just do more of that. And I think they'll just they'll take off on their own. They will find and as long as they have a safe space and an opportunity to be able to explore that, I think creativity is unstoppable. It's, they can do anything. And I think they would surprise any of us, definitely.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Devon, just out of curiosity, because one of the things that was really resonated with me, even in your story and everything, is this nature of like an instant created family. I'm 61, and like I mentioned before, still in that single lane, still don't have any kids, but I've definitely dated women that have had kids, and sometimes that could be part of that whole conversation, because it's a conversation as to how much they want you in the kids' lives and whether the kids are adults or not adults, and all along those lines. But I just wondering, as one that created an instant family with your mom and with your partner, how did you manage that, and how did that help in your own work-life balance?
I mean, there's a lot to that, because I mean, there were so many changes that happened just immediately with like my career, for instance. I was a coach at the time, and I could commute back and forth from the house because I didn't have kids, and didn't have to worry about when I would leave, when I would come back. So that was something that definitely had to change. I also, Sarah, you saying about homeschooling, that's something that we've been looking into a lot. My partner is like gung ho, like we need to homeschool the kids. We need to get them out of the school system. So even like that thought, that whole process of like, how do we manage that? You know, they're in school now and it's tough. It's a lot to deal with because, you know, there are things that happen in the school that we don't necessarily agree with. So that's something that I never even thought that I would struggle with, you know, let alone the idea of having kids. So it's just, you know, as much as I want to say that it was just like so easy and, you know, them coming into our lives, which is so expansive. There were so many things that were, I guess, brought to our eyes that weren't before, that kind of just made us realize how big life is, you know, especially living it through your kids and their experiences and what they want to do and how they're feeling and how to navigate that all. It's a tough process. So I kudos to all the mothers. You guys are amazing. I have an immense amount of respect for what you guys do and just the amount of work it takes to have 1, 2, you know, however many kids you have. So yeah, it's a process.
No doubt about that, and we'll bring in Alison as well. But one of the things I was curious about to hear from all of you, and I definitely want to learn more about Alison as well, is this whole notion of even the type of schooling and all along those lines. Because I know here in North Carolina, we've been having a lot of conversations around people that are supporters of charter schools. I actually went to Marquette, and Howard Fuller is a big proponent of charter schools and all along those lines. And then there are those kind of specialty schools as well. Because I know there's some schools that are STEM oriented or oriented around different cultures, and even some that are oriented around the arts and everything. So just wondering y'all's thoughts about these kind of specialty schools also. Anybody that wants to take the question.
Well, as far as the specialty schools, I think it also does come down to how much it might cost. You know, everything is so expensive nowadays, and to me, there are more opportunities in homeschooling, no matter which way you might want to go. You know, you can do a school online, you can do through a charter where they'll actually keep your, you know, records and keep your transcripts and help you along the journey a little bit. In the state of California, they will actually give you funds to buy ink, paper, printer, and a lot of those funds can also go to like the extracurriculars. We have a family that pays for horse riding lessons through their extra funds and things like that you might not necessarily either not have time or the money to do if you didn't maybe homeschool through charter. We homeschool just by it's called PSA, it's private school. It's actually illegal in the state of California to actually homeschool. So you have to fill out a special affidavit and you have to basically create your own school. And if you go that route, then you don't get the funds. You don't get any help from the state, but you have more freedom to decide how you want to school and the things that you want to do. But we have a lot of co-ops and a lot of families that use the charter funds to, you know, they still have the control at home. They're picking the curriculum, but they just sort of have an advisor that helps them sort of navigate through. And then they have these extra funds to go and do all these extracurricular activities. So I think in that world, it just depends on what fits your family. And that's the beauty of homeschool. And then specifically like the brick and mortar charters, you know, those might be free, but again, they do follow the public education standards. A lot of them are Common Core, state testing. And, you know, if you're all good with that, they might have a little bit of extra, things they offer as far as STEM and things like that, that maybe a traditional public school wouldn't. And again, I think it just comes down to the time that you have to spend, what you're comfortable with. You know, I have no teaching degree by any means, but I was able to get my oldest. She graduated a year early from high school. And, you know, you just kind of do what you have to do when you're put in that position. So I think there should be definitely no, you know, feelings of you can't do this. You absolutely can do it. It just, what does it look like for your family and how do you want to pursue that?
And that makes a lot of sense and everything. And just on the opposite side of that, and I've told this story several times on this podcast as well as other podcasts, my mother actually was the flip side of that. She and my dad decided to start a community radio station back in the mid 70s, around 76. It was on for about 12 years. And mom was actually trained as a guidance counselor, but they were frustrated because they didn't see enough of the minority voice, meaning the voice around the African-American and Hispanic and the Native American cultures. And they also were big jazz fans, and they didn't hear enough jazz music because the jazz station that had existed had closed down. So they decided to create their own station, and with no radio background whatsoever. Because like I said, mom was trained as a guidance counselor. Dad was trained as an engineer in the military, but not a radio engineer and all of those lines. So it was literally learning on the fly. And it did last for 12 years. And they maintained that career for a number of years as well. And it led to other careers because Dad is still even in his late 80s, early 80s, is a well-known artist here in North Carolina and all along those lines. And mom just retired, but she retired and running one of the larger foundations in North Carolina, that being the Golden Leaf Foundation, and all in that space. So definitely I've learned a lot about leadership from both of my parents, as well as my younger brother and a number of others as well. Alison, if you'll share a little bit about your story as well, and then we might have some other stories to go on as well, because I did have a couple of questions that I had in mind also, but share a little bit about your story.
Yeah, I feel like a strange silent partner here. Hi, everybody. I'm Alison. I'm an East Coast girl. I'm here in Virginia, so I'm not too far north of you, Marc, in Richmond, Virginia. But I was born in Appalachia. I identified with a little bit of each of your stories, so thank you for sharing. I am an author, Devon, as well. Recently, I wrote my first book. I am a salesperson at heart. I started selling in my bathroom mirror when I was like 8 years old, and have had, every job under the sun. I've got a sordid past that has taken me all over the country, including a small career in New York City in fashion. I've been in construction and working around marble and stone products and surfaces for the last 15 years. And so I decided to teach salespeople some techniques, because I guess I've got that gift of gab and I've got what it takes to be a little successful there. So I developed sort of an online forum really aimed towards entrepreneurs and small businesses. And I'm finding that my audience is developing towards women and minority businesses. I seem to find, oh goodness, I should shut my blinds. The sun just set just right. Y'all saw that. It happened literally in a moment. But anyway, I'm finding, my audience is shifting, and it started completely based upon a need that I wanted to fill. I was listening to customers that I had up and down the East Coast, and I was constantly hearing that, from men who would tell me, please come train my people. You're just so amazing, and all this stuff, and you've been all over the world. And they would see me speak all these languages and know all these things. And then I had people tell me all the time, can't you train my people? And it was like, how do you get all of that knowledge and try to bottle it up and share it with people? And the easiest way is through a book, right? Mm-hmm. So, so anyway, I started writing a few years ago, and I love what Heidi shared about self-care and time management. There's a lot of those pieces in my world too. I have spent many years. I know I don't look it, but I'm in my mid 40s, and so I'm trying to get into that stage of life of really not being a workaholic and approaching that work-life balance and taking things in stride. And it's not all about what you achieve. And I think some of my life goals right now are it will still be there tomorrow, and learn how to hire people who can help you accomplish the big things, and you can't do it all yourself, and know your limitations. These are some of my life goals.
That makes a lot of sense and everything. Along those same lines, and I'd love to hear from both you and Heidi. I know that I've got some friends that are women that are in non-traditional jobs. I have a dear friend that is in the real estate space, and she has actually done some work around construction as well. And we know that a lot of women are not necessarily into construction and all along those lines. So I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts when there are people that might be still trying to leave that glass ceiling up there and not allow enough women into certain kind of careers? I actually had the pleasure on one of my other podcasts of talking to a composer. She goes by the Angel and everything, and that was the show that we did on Monday. And she talked about the fact that there are only like 6% of women in general. We're not even talking about minority women that are actually composers for television and for the movie industry and all along those lines. I imagine that both of you have seen some similar stark kind of figures that are scary in some of these businesses. But I'd love to hear from both Alison and Heidi, and even if you want to jump in, Sarah, as well, about some of these careers that are not seen as quote unquote women's work and all along those lines.
If you don't mind, I'll take the lead just quickly, and I try not to be too long-winded, but in construction, just some quick facts. There's 11% of the entire industry is women. And it's a battle that we face regularly. I recently participated this summer in a camp for 7th to 9th grade young women, where we are teaching them about getting into the trade. And it is a passion project for me. You can, anybody who's listening, there's stuff all over my website about it. And I'd love to have more people involved. It's something that I want to bring back to Appalachia, where I'm from. I want to preach it from the mountaintops, if you will. I mean, that goes back deep into my roots. And it is still a challenge. It's not necessarily like just about men versus women. I want to be clear about that too, because I hate that it's always about this men versus women piece. It's just about these domineering roles in general, and women can keep women down just as much as men can keep women down. So with that, I'll pass.
Yeah, and along those same lines, I definitely want to hear from Heidi, but I know many years ago when I first got into the media world and the newspaper world, I actually took a job, ironically, in Florida, down in Boca Raton and all along those lines. And there was a gentleman, I can't remember his name and all, but he was definitely a fellow minority. And I got the impression, because I was only down there for 4 or 5 months, and everything, that he was doing everything possible to discourage what I was doing in terms of being a rising cub reporter and all along those lines. And I think that he was doing the same thing with some of the women that were there. And remember, there was like, I think a Hispanic young lady that was there. And I just felt that he liked being he'd use this analogy, the big fish in the small pond. And if there were other fish that were coming along there, he was feeling threatened by them and all along those lines. So I was just wondering, Heidi, if you had some thoughts around that, because you are a business leader and definitely involved in leadership coaching. So I think that is a problem that exists on a lot of different levels.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, Alison, because one of my biggest mottos that I share in when I'm putting out content or working with my clients is we're better together. And I work with female entrepreneurs, and I'm always about collaboration and connection and helping each other grow and building each other up, because the more that we can support other women and just people in business in general, the further we're all going to get. I'm a believer in there's no competition. We're all just trying to be in service and put our message out and help as many people we can in their transformation, whatever that looks like for them. So I love that you brought that up, because I think it's really important that women know that there are women out there, and just people in general, men or women, there are people out there who want to help you rise, who want to support you in that. And when I worked in the corporate space, I can't really talk into that glass ceiling, because I was a workaholic too, Alison. So that was where I had to learn when I started my business. It took me a few years. That's what slowed me down when I was growing, was because I was working all the time, but it was stalling me versus growing me, because I didn't have that work-life balance. I wasn't filling my cup. So I was coming from a place of burnout, and people see that, people know that. And it's Absolutely. All about energy, and they want to work with people who have the energy and are positive and they're not tired all the time. And I was showing up that way. So I got to switch that, and that was a learning lesson for me. But when I was in the corporate space, when you over deliver, they see that. So I was always given the opportunities if I wanted them to rise up, but deep down, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's really because I wanted that freedom. I didn't want to be locked into that 9 to 5, and I didn't want to have that cap. I wanted to be in control of my finances and my income. So that's my take on it.
No, I definitely want to hear from Sarah as well. But one of the other things that I've been fascinated by, and I've dealt with this myself, but I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts around this, is that definitely a lot of us want to support our friends that have dreams and even entrepreneurial dreams and everything. But sometimes I think that our friends and acquaintances try to co-opt their dreams into our own visions and all along those lines. So they kind of like try to get you to fall into their dream and not necessarily see that it might not necessarily be your own vision and all along those lines. So I was just wondering, for all of you, how do you cope with that? Because I know I've got a couple of friends that are always trying to pull me into their projects, their activities and everything. And sometimes you have to use that simple word, no, and all along those lines, but it can be a difficult word when you're talking to your friends and everything. So I just wondering y'all's thoughts around that, because I do know that in that corporate world, there are a lot of folks that will have those ambitions, and there's nothing wrong with them having their ambitions, but they will try to not think about what your dream is and whether it actually plays into their dream.
Sorry, go ahead.
That happened with me when I started my business, and I'll be really brief. And it was actually family. And I think when family comes to you, or when friends come to you, they come from a place of love. They want to protect you, so they don't want you to fail. They're nervous for you. So like for me, it was like, why don't you just go back to school? Why don't you just get a degree? You want to coach people, like you're not like if you want to do that, then get a degree, right? And because they don't understand my why, what was driving me, and they really didn't understand the entrepreneurial journey or even what I was doing. They were like, what's coaching? Right. right, Alison. So so I had to like literally, that stalled me too. I stopped my business at one point. I quit. I walked away and I went to working 2 jobs, and I was burnt out. And finally I got to go, no, I get to do this for me and my kids. This is my vision. And I got to step into my vision. And I surrounded myself with people who were like-minded individuals. And like you said, Marc, many times it's not our friends and family, and it's not because they don't love us. It's because they do love us and they just don't understand. So my advice would be, find a community, find a mentor, find a group of people that will hold you accountable, like shake you with love when you need it, and also help rise you up and be there to support you when you're having those hard days.
Yeah, definitely.
My partner is going to be so mad when he hears this, because like, to be quite honest, I'm in that in between of I still have my 9 to 5, but I'm doing all the entrepreneurial stuff, but too afraid to let go of the 9 to 5, because if I do, then bills will be due and I won't be able to pay, and the kids will be, all the small things that we tell ourselves. So thank you so much for saying this right now, because you have no idea how much you're waking up, me right now, but I'm sure anyone else that's listening to this.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And Sarah, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and definitely want to get to you as well, Alison. But one thing that I think about is I'm involved in the arts, and I have a number of friends that are artists, that are musicians, actors, and we all know that they oftentimes have to have that side gig and all along those lines, whether it's working at DoorDash, whether it's working at Grubhub, or whether it's working with Uber or a number of other things. And sometimes it feels as if those jobs are pulling them away from their own creative mission and their own creative journey. One of the things that I like to do is, and I think that this is just my philosophy, I separate between a job and a career, because somebody earlier had mentioned Common Core and education. And actually one of my jobs is actually with one of those Common Core testing companies. It's called Measurement Incorporated, and we grade the test that is one of the larger testing companies in the country. And I'm not even a big fan of Common Core testing, but it's one of those jobs to pay the bills that you were just talking about, and all along those lines. Whereas this kind of stuff that I'm doing on Pod TV, the stuff that I do with my event plan, and a number of other stuff, that is a career, because that's something I have a passion about, and all along those lines. But I just wondering y'all's thoughts, because I sometimes feel that too often people go into that job rut. I think you kind of alluded to it, Devon, to get into that job rut, and they're afraid to leave the job, and they're afraid to go into their career because they're afraid that they won't have the money to pay the bills or to pay for their rent or a number of other things. So I think that's what happens, and I think that's where, in my mind, there are a lot of frustrated workers out there, because they are not happy in the jobs that they are doing, because they're not doing it from a place of really conviction in the job and everything.
Absolutely.
I'll just chime in with some advice here, because I went to a luncheon last week. I'm in a community here called Metropolitan Business League, and first of all, somebody hit on it with the mentorship. Mm-hmm. Find a mentor. I never stop learning from it, and I always have to keep finding a new mentor in every path that I take. So regardless of me, there's always somebody I need to learn from. But I was listening. I think you have to decide what side you are going to fall on. Are you the person who can hold a job while starting a business on the side? Or are you the person who is going to go all in and quit the job and be able to start the business and go. I was not the person who could start the business on the side and be successful because I'm an all-in person. I had to save all of my money, and I had to have that savings. So I followed the have a year in the bank ready to go before I was able to launch my company, because I knew that I wanted to be able to I had a business plan, I had a plan, I had a vision, I knew exactly where I was going. It was not a quit your job and flail. It was quit your job and be ready to go. But you got to have money in the bank. You got to have everything ready to go. And I was that kind of person, because I can't do both. I can't be committed to a job, because when I'm committed to a company, I'm also that all-in person. I'm going to work as hard as possible. So I think you have to decide what kind of the person that you can be. But I met a wonderful woman at this luncheon a few weeks ago, and she has done it, man. She started a winery in Petersburg, Virginia. And she has had a full-time job that she has kept the entire time. Wow. And she has a partner. Now she's not doing it alone, and that's a blessing also, because you can split the load. Like, I don't know what that's like to have a business partner. That's amazing, but at the same time, and she's a mom, and so I do think that, like, having your cake and eat it too is possible, but you have to decide, like, what side of the street you're on and how quickly you want to move and what are your resources. And I'm certainly not a how to start your business coach. I've definitely done it a couple of times. This is not my first business, and I have another one too, but anyway, if we're shifting the conversation,
no problem. That's what the dinner party is all about. It's about conversations and all along those lines. I was actually just thinking about a friend of mine that is also in Virginia, and I need to reach back out to her and all along those lines. But she literally started not a winery, but a wine company. And they're actually quite successful. They're now in some major grocery stores and all along those lines. But it was actually after having a disaster in the corporate environment. I think it was after a accident and a number of other things that were going on. So Gwen Hurt actually started a company called Shoe Crazy. It's because they have a love for shoes and all along those lines. So she created a company, and they have a number of wine products, because her and her definitely daughter, and I think maybe even some of the other kids as well, have a interest in shoes. So that's why the name Shoe Crazy, and also the interest in wine. But I want to say it was after, once it was an automobile accident, but it was something that was causing her to leave her job at IBM is what forced her into the career and all along those lines. And like I said, they've been in business for a number of years. I know that they're in a couple of major grocery stores and a couple of major outlets and all along those lines. So that's one of those success type stories, and it comes from Virginia. So if you're not familiar with Shoe Crazy, definitely look them up, and they've got definitely wines that they might even be expanded into some other fields as well and everything. So my question to everybody is, how much is disaster, they say disaster can be sometimes the mother of invention and all along those lines. So how much have kind of those crust of problems forced you into the kind of careers that even the four of you have as well? Because I do know that sometimes we are forced into going into the entrepreneurship business. I think you kind of alluded to it, Devon, and even you did, Alison, as well. But I'd love to hear from both Sarah and Heidi if they had things that were the impetus for their careers.
Yeah, so I'm a little late to the table as far as entrepreneurship. It's something that I'm just now discovering and getting into. I was more of, you talk about being afraid of letting go of that job. I started as a 911 dispatcher for a police department. And one of my reasons for starting with them was they offered tuition reimbursement for college. So I worked graveyards and went to school during the day, thinking that I was going to go somewhere with this amazing college degree that I had to have. It has not served me. My return on investment was absolutely zero. But I was afraid to leave that steady paycheck. I had benefits. That was not something that I wanted to get away from. But I became very, you talk about having men or women and maybe holding you back. While it wasn't in an entrepreneurship way, it was very much a cutthroat. There was a lot of people that suffered from, self-esteem issues and just feeling bad about themselves. And it was an eye-opener for me to have boundaries and the things that I wanted to do with my life, and what was I going to do? And, after having children, I could not keep that schedule. That was not, working graveyards with children was just not going to work. So I will say the community that I have found in podcasting And especially, I mean, men as well, but women that are just, I have never experienced women and being kind and lifting that it was never, I was in a very cutthroat communication center. It was I mean, it was terrible. And so I've never, ever experienced, I mean, other than, you know, your mom, you know, the people around you that love you, in a work environment, and to that people want to hear my ideas, or they want to sit down and collab, or they want to talk. I've never experienced that at all. So I think when, like you were saying, Heidi, when you find that right community and you find that right niche that, you know, you might fit into, wow, windows and doors and everything open, and it's amazing. But it most definitely, I had to learn to make sure that I had my boundaries and my, you know, goals and what I wanted to keep. And that was, like I said, I was late to the party. That took me a really long time to figure those things out. And I'm still learning. So that, I just definitely honing in, like I said, on community. That's you. And like you said, Alison, mentorship, because I honestly didn't think there were any mentors out. Like I couldn't find any. I was in the wrong atmosphere basically. And now, like I said, the podcasting community, from the big podcasting that have tons and tons and tons of followers to, you know, the 10 followers, it's just amazing. And they're so welcoming. I've never experienced that ever. So that's my perspective on it.
No,
That's
definitely
awesome.
along those same lines. And part of the reason that Pod TV was created was Nick Palveda and Kim Calhoun were a little bit frustrated by a couple of things. One, they were frustrated by the media landscape and the fact that the media wasn't covering a number of things, including the pandemic, but they also had a relationship, because originally it was called IBM TV, with IBM and some other corporations. So they were wanting to talk to business leaders and they wanted to talk to other people, but whenever they were approaching some of the networks, they were told, you know, either they had to pay or they would be put on at like 2 a.m. So they at some point were like, well, let's start our own, and all along those lines. So it was very much parallel to what I said my parents had done as well. So that's kind of the reason that I have an affinity for them, and all, because I saw the parallel in that sense, because they wanted to talk about a number of issues, whether it was the pandemic or a number of other things. But I know one thing that they are very big on is this notion of fiscal literacy and what we're not teaching in our school systems. And one of the things that they talk about is that we don't teach fiscal literacy, and we don't necessarily teach the trades as well. So I'd love to hear from all of y'all thoughts around that, because that's something that they are very passionate about. And they oftentimes talk about the fact that the trades are almost discouraged. I remember when I went to high school, and this was in the late 70s, and all along those lines, we actually had people that were on a trade track. You would go on a trade track, or you might go on the college track. And of course, there were some folks that went on the third track, which was not named, but it was the military track, and all along those lines. But there was definitely folks that were encouraged to be plumbers, encouraged to be brick masons, encouraged to do even auto mechanic jobs. And as we all know, some of those folks are actually paid more than the doctors and the lawyers, but we sometimes don't think about that. And we sometimes even discount those folks in our own lives, because I even know some folks that are in their relationship spaces won't talk to the blue collar worker. They think that the blue collar worker is lesser than them, but I'm going like, that person has got some serious work ethics and some serious other things going on that you might need to consider them in your life, not either as a life partner, as a friend, or whatever. But we don't do enough of that, just in my mind, and everything along those lines. But I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts around, one, are we doing enough to teach people about fiscal literacy? And are we doing enough to teach about the trades? And if not, what can we do to change that?
I want to share, I'll share, but first I want to share talking to what Sarah said. Just for anybody listening, it's never too late. It's never too late to start. It's in your perfect timing. You're in the right place at the right time. Whenever the time is for you, it's perfect, and we get to trust that. So, Sarah, it's perfect timing for you. You're not late to the party. It's just it's perfect. And I'm so grateful to meet you and all of you today.
You as well. Yeah, everybody.
As far as vocation, I wish there was more. I'm in South Florida, and we have great schools here, but at the same time, I wish there was more that was geared toward vocation. Absolutely, 100%. Something more toward the financial fiscal responsibility, because I didn't have that growing up, and I wish I did. I was basically went to college, and Dad said, "Here's a checkbook," and I'm like, "What's this?" We're trying to teach our children the opposite of that. But as parents were also juggling a lot of other things. So it would be wonderful if they had more available. And I don't know in the virtual schools and the home schools if they do. I know that we balanced both. My daughter was in virtual school halfway in the second half of middle school for different reasons. And we also in 4th and 5th grade, she worked with her ice skating coach and she was homeschooled with her. And then middle school, virtual school, and now she's back into brick and mortar. And my son has been in brick and mortar the entire time. And I think based on that conversation that we had a little earlier, it's a lot to do with the children. Also what works for them. For my son, virtual school was not, being home with me was not going to work as a single mom trying to build a business. But for my daughter, it was more fitting for her. And I think in the virtual space and the homeschooling, there might be more opportunities that I saw for vocation. But in the brick and mortar schools, I just don't see that. And I do wish there was more, especially because not every kid is meant for college. And there's nothing wrong with that. Every child is unique and different. And we should be working toward their gifts and passions and not just about the standard, the standard subjects in school and so focused on grades. I see that also. We're so focused on grades in many of the schools and not on their emotional health. I wish there was more for that as well.
And speaking of the emotional health, and I'd love to hear all of y'all's thoughts around this as well, but I know a lot of people are concerned about how we are becoming more isolated. I think I've heard recently there's a whole pandemic around loneliness, and a lot of people are going out and they are so engaged in the computer technology, even in the business lanes and all along those lines, that they aren't necessarily doing the direct communications and the direct commitments and everything. I was actually on a Clubhouse room and they was actually talking about they felt there was a I've almost called it a pandemic around commitment, that people were afraid to commit to their job, commit to their relationships, commit just in general and everything. And they felt that part of that was around what happened in these last 3 years with the pandemic. But I don't know y'all's thoughts around that. And is that something that we need to address in our society? Because I know a lot of folks have been afraid to commit to a number of things, even their jobs and all along those lines. Anybody?
I would say, I saw an article the other day and they were talking about just now how kids are exposed to so much and they're learning at such a rate that is so much faster than anything we've ever experienced. And so I think there's like a fine line. And even when Heidi was saying that, what worked for her daughter didn't necessarily work for her son, it kind of just depends on what, what's best for the kid or what's best for us as a society, and with times moving so fast and everything, you can get anything on the internet at the drop of a dime. I think naturally society is going to have to progress in some ways. And I think also there are some ways where we need to kind of reserve that like naturalness of humanity. For example, with the kids, I've noticed that if they are left to their screens, they'll be on their screens all day. They won't step away from it. They're almost like in a trance almost. And that's not something I remember as a kid. I remember going outside, hanging out with my friends, just doing all kinds of different things that didn't involve sitting in front of a screen. And that's pretty much the norm if I allow it for them. So yeah, it's definitely a different time. And I think there are things that we can incorporate to help the kids feel a little bit more grounded. But it's really, it's up to the parent and the kid and how you guys really establish that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, Alison, you mentioned it earlier. How do you deal with the work-life balance? We talked about that earlier, and I definitely want to hear from the other folks as well, because I think that is something that is oftentimes frustrating. Even as a single man in his early 60s, I sometimes am trying to figure out that work-life balance. Later on this evening, I'll have to run to one of those part-time jobs and all along those lines. But definitely, how do you manage that work-life balance even in your space there in Virginia and everything?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, we don't have another hour and a half for me to go into all of my drama, but I'm just kidding. I actually have a chapter in the book, the last chapter of the book. It was almost like a personal chapter that I wrote about mental health and selling. So historically, actually, salespeople in general have a lot of problems with substance abuse and alcoholism. And I am actually a recovering person, and I spend a lot of time working in recovery. Wasn't anything terribly tragic, but for like many people, even during COVID, I just seemed to get a little too much into the wine, and I had to take a step back. And through some local resources, I've been able to really channel the mental health balance segment, and it's actually helped me in so many more areas of my life. So taking that step was the first one for me to be able to also apply that to even my professional life, and really trying to break away from workaholicism, right? And like really looking at my coping mechanisms and what I need. And I talk a little bit about that in my book as well. And just recognizing what's too much, what am I channeling? And then I have to make sure that I take time. So I work with others, I help other people. I go to church and I focus on a spiritual reflection with a higher power, and I ask for help. I go to therapy, not like every day, but I mean, in general, these things are what keep me balanced in life. And I'm really proud of like what the last 3.5 years have given me, and just a new reflection on life. And you know what, that clarity has given me a chance to build an entire new business model out of it. I have a clear head every morning when I wake up. There's never a hangover. And you know what? That's a beautiful thing. So you brought up a good topic for me, and I don't mind talking about it and sharing. And I love that gift that I also get to share with the world. So thanks for letting me talk about it.
Hey, no problem at all and everything. Sarah, how do you balance that work-life balance and all along those lines? Because definitely it can be very hard to deal with and all along those lines. And sometimes I think that, and I'm glad you were able to do that, Alison, but sometimes I think that we are afraid to have those deep conversations with ourselves as well. And I was just wondering if that's something that you often have to do even in this entrepreneurial journey, because sometimes we are afraid to have those hard conversations with ourselves.
So, I mean, to be honest, I didn't at first. It has taken me a lot of digging deep and, like I said, finding boundaries and finding those things that you have to say no to. I think, Marc, you had talked about finding the no word. At first, I didn't. My oldest I was working full time. My husband was working full time, and we were not as involved parents as we should be. I will totally own that at the time. She's quite a bit older than my other two. And so at the time, for a while, it was just the three of us. And we were just, I want to say like some families that just, your kid goes to school, you work, and that's what you did. And unfortunately, it took her becoming severely bullied at school for us to take a step back and figure out, what are we doing? What are we balancing? Because I was not in the capacity as a mom that I wanted to be or that I should have been. And she suffered from that. And I had to really take a step back and say, there's no balance here at all. She was suffering. And again, on the surface, it might've looked fine. And financially, hey, that's great, but it was not worth her mental health and what she went through. So I really had to do a deep dive on how is this going to look? How is it going to look if we become a one-person financially based family? What is that going to look like? How can I help her? And I will say, she took a good year to just become herself again. That's how extremely bad it was. And I think that in and of itself kind of wakes you up and kind of snaps you out of whatever you think is, just going along fine. It was not. And so that was hard. And I would say fast forward now with three of them. And like I said, being new to the table and coming into it, I really have to make sure I have lots of time management. And that took me a long time to learn. That took a long, what do I need? And then you throw my heart attack in there. I had to start actually finding time to take care of myself, finding time to actually do correct shopping, to eat what I needed to eat, finding time to exercise. The 30 minutes that I was doing before, maybe 3 times a week, it wasn't cutting it. That was not going to be what I needed. And I had to kind of let myself off the hook and allow myself, give myself permission to do that while finding the balance with them, while finding the balance with homeschool. And now, like I said, this relaunching of the podcast and what I want to do with it, it's a lot. But I think if you don't have a good concept of time management, it's going to be really difficult, very difficult.
No, I definitely agree with you on that and everything. And Heidi, one of the things I've been very much concerned about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, is a lot of people have these great entrepreneurial ideas, but then when you ask them the most basic question, which actually I think Devon alluded to it earlier and everything about a business plan, they have no clue what that is, or even have a business plan or a life plan or any other kind of plan as well. So I just wonder, as a business coach, how do you get folks to understand that they need to have some sort of agenda to what they are trying to create and everything? Because I think some people, and this is just my own personal thoughts, is I think a lot of people are going to have a friend that has this expression, going after the bag. And I think they're going after the bag, but they don't have a plan for how to get to the bag. And they're just trying to wing it. They're literally trying to wing it, even in the business lanes as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts around that, Heidi, because I think a lot of people try to create these businesses and have no notion of how to do it.
That's a great question. And the first thing is that I always say is action brings clarity. By taking some step forward, because we can get paralyzed on what the step is that we need to take. But by taking some form of action, you're going to get clear on whether that was the right action or the wrong action, which is never wrong. It's just a matter of opening the door for the next step. Also, getting clear comes with support. Going back to mentorship, find a mentor that you align with, that you resonate with, and that you trust can get you to, that understands your goals. Like, interview them. And it should be a vetting process for both parties, because when I work with someone, I want to make sure that they resonate with my core values, because at the end of the day, I want to work with people who have the same core values as me. And when you're starting a business, find a mentor that has similar core values to you, because that's really an important piece in connecting with someone and trusting that they can get you to where you want to go. And by working with a mentor, they're going to help you with that plan on moving forward, to keep you from lone wolfing it. Because when we lone wolf it, we can get very confused on those next steps, and then we're not taking action. So finding a mentor is key, and really just taking action. Take the first step. The first step leads to the second step. The second step leads to the third step. And it's amazing how clear you're going to get by taking that forward moving action.
No doubt about that. This is a question for all four of you, and all along those lines, we've got about another 25 or 30 minutes to go, and all in that space. But what advice would you give to entrepreneurs, or those that think they want to go into entrepreneurship? And Devon, I even consider authorship a form of entrepreneurship as well, and all along those lines. So what advice would you give to folks that are thinking that they want to go into that field, and all along those lines?
Yeah, I think Heidi was spot on taking the first step. For me, with writing my book, it was meeting with the kids and talking to them about doing it. That was my first step. And then from there, finding the publisher and then meeting with them and telling them my story, and then, going from there. But I think also just being brave. I think a lot of the times, a lot of the things that make us afraid are the things that we're meant to do, for whatever reason. If, my story was written so that I could impact children and inspire them to find their power in whatever situation they're in. And by doing that with relating to the characters that I created. So I think being brave is a really, really big thing for anyone to make any kind of step towards entrepreneurship, or, just bettering their life in general. So.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Definitely hear other people's advice as well. Some of the things I do sometimes is they have some fun questions on the show and on the network as well. So Devon, you've been listening to this conversation. You seem to be a superhero fan and all along those lines. So if you had to name all four of us as superheroes, what would our roles be and all along those lines? Or maybe there's a character in the book as well. So that's my question for you, since I also...
Okay. If I was doing characters from the book, I would say you're Juno, which is Icurus's father figure, best friend to his mom. I would say Alison, Heidi, and Sarah, you guys are all a great example of the light goddess, which is Icurus's mom and his matriarch, who he looks up to. So yeah, I would say if I were going with characters that weren't from my book, I'd say Wonder Woman. I'd say Jessica Cruz from Green Lantern. Like, you guys are all super amazing people. And like I said, I'm really grateful to even be in the same space as you guys. But my book's name is Icurus Finds His Power.
Appreciate that and everything. Definitely appreciate that. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs as well? And I'll start with you, Heidi, and then definitely Alison and Sarah as well. So what advice would you give to entrepreneurs?
Take action. Like I said, take action. Action brings clarity. Find a community of people, like-minded individuals, to support you in your journey, because I say it all the time. Every day is not filled with unicorns, cupcakes, and roses. It's good. We have our hard days. It's a lonely journey. It can be, but it doesn't have to be, right? Entrepreneurship can be a lonely journey, because especially if we're working from home in our little, space by ourselves, but it doesn't have to be. So surround yourself with a community of people that you resonate with, that can raise you up, can support you and cheer you along the way, and celebrate you. And that's another thing. Celebrate yourself. We can get so focused on our goals, and once we reach that goal, we never celebrate it because we're already on to the next one. So each day, I say, before you close the door, look at what worked in your business that day, what didn't work. So you can keep doing what worked, and then tweak for the next day what didn't work. And make sure before you close that computer or close the doors to your business and go into your family world, celebrate what you accomplished that day, because I promise you accomplished something. So celebration is key.
Yeah, definitely agree. The celebration is key.
And find a mentor that can support you.
Sarah, do you do enough celebration in your own entrepreneurship journey? You said it's a new entrepreneurship journey, and do you do enough of that? And what advice would you give to other new entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I would say, for me, I would say the first thing is to make sure that you're not only comfortable, but you know who you are, and that you have these things that you're able to say, I can do this, I can't do this, or I don't want to do this, or I do want to do this, and just know for sure who you are to be able to move forward. I would say put one foot in front of the other. Like Heidi said, some days are going to be bad, but the celebration is you got up, you tried, maybe it failed. Failure doesn't have to be a bad thing. You just learn from it, keep hammering, move on, one foot in front of the other. And then, celebrate the little things. Did you, get a response on an email? I mean, that's a celebrate. Did you put a feeler out there and somebody actually responded back? I mean, to me, that's huge, right? Did you get something booked? Did you schedule something? Did you, for me, I spend a lot of time trying to edit. Did I do all the edits I wanted to? I mean, you have to find this, because you can get bogged down with finding the negative or the not something to celebrate and worry about it and, ponder it. Oh, how could I do it better? But finding those little things to just propel you to the next step, propel you to keep putting that one foot in front of the other. That's definitely what I would say.
Yep. What about yourself, Alison?
Yeah, all great points. Everybody's said some wonderful things. I think the only thing I would add is about the foundation. So I firmly believe in having a solid foundation and principles in effect. And I think in entrepreneurship, that's everything that everybody's mentioned, right? Like mentorship, having a proper business plan, having people like Heidi, having a coach, having, I think having a spiritual foundation is really important, no matter what that is. It doesn't have to be, the traditional sense. It can be whatever. But I think having those foundations in place and is very, very, very important before you go on that path. Because if you don't have a good plan and you don't have that foundation, then you don't have anything to fall back on. And, as we all know, if you build a house on sand, it might wash away.
Definitely very true and everything. Alison, you mentioned, and I'd love to hear everybody talks about that. How important is it to have that total balance and everything? Because I'm definitely one that believes in emotional, physical, mental, and even spiritual connections as well. But how important is it to all of you to have that in your growth and in your life growth and even in your business growth as well? So I'll start with you, Devon. I'd love to hear how important is it to have that total balance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to figure that all out, but for me personally, it's really important because it really just dictates how your day is going to go, or how your week's going to go. And we've gone as far as to even changing the type of water we drink, and that's been something that's really been big in our lives, but not something that we, once again, really knew too much about before we started researching and kind of getting into it. So I would say just having a balance in general, or trying to strive to having a balance, is super important, especially when it comes to what you're putting in your body. So yeah, I think a balance is super essential.
Yeah. What about you, Sarah?
I would piggyback off of Devon, actually having to learn what to put in your body, the right things, the water, especially. I mean, that's a great point. And to fuel our body with the right fuel is so important so we can keep going. And, balance is everything. And I think, Alison, you talked about the spiritual part of it. I think, at least for me personally, that's you know helps me get out of bed. That helps me to do the things that I need to do, and it also helps me feel that I'm not alone. That I have, somebody's got my back. Somebody, there's somebody watching out for me. And yeah, maybe I'll screw it up, yeah, maybe I'll fail, but I know I can still take comfort in that and have those, balanced feelings. And it's something that I'm trying to, like I said, apply every day and find that time management. And I think it's crucial, and I think you definitely have to have the balance for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I just got the text that Heidi mentioned and everything, and don't worry, the whole thing will end in about 10 or 15 minutes all along those lines. But Heidi, I did see what you said and everything, so I'm going to actually toss the question I'll give to everybody toward the end and all along those lines, which is, as part of the network, I try to get everybody to share where they can be found, how they can be reached, and their message of positivity and hope. Anybody that watches this show on a regular basis knows that that is something that I am very much about, trying to spread positivity and hope in any way that I can. So I try to get all my guests to share their message of positivity and hope for the global network, because we are heard in like roughly 200 countries and all in that space. So any message of positivity and hope that you have, and if you can tell folks how you can be reached, and then we'll continue the conversation for a few more minutes, but that will go to everybody as well. But definitely, if you can share that, Heidi.
Sure. Thank you so much. What I learned, something I learned from my mentors that I live by, is the word hope. Absolutely. The word hope, which is help one person every day. So if you're feeling stuck, or you're feeling like you don't know what to do, or you're feeling like fear is taking over, I always lean into help one person every day. Focusing out takes it away from focusing on what we're getting, what's holding us back, or what the fear is that we're feeling, or that stuckness. And when we're serving and focused out, it's just everything shifts. Your energy shifts, your body shifts, and you can't be sad, you can't be depressed, you can't be in that negative space. And you start to lean into a space of gratitude when you're in that space of helping one person every day and serving.
Yeah, no doubt about that, and no doubt about that. No, and Sarah, what about you? Because, like I said, we are getting ready to wind down. I know Heidi's got to get ready to go, and all along those lines. But what message would you have of positivity and hope? And Heidi, also, you didn't give how you can be reached, but before Sarah answers, we can tell how you can be reached as well.
Thank you. You can reach out to me on my website. It's my name, HeidiSchalk.com. I'm also on all the platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Heidi Schalk Coaching, YouTube. Also, I have a podcast, BESHE Podcast, which stands for Be Seen, Be Heard, Be Empowered. So yeah, you can reach me on all those. I would love to connect. DM me. I'll DM you back. Let's chat.
Sounds good. And definitely sure everybody here will be connecting with each other as well. So definitely we're looking forward to that. And do know that everybody here is invited to make a return trip as well. But Sarah, if you'll share a little bit about how you can be reached and the message of positivity and hope that you would give as well.
Yeah. So my message is, life is messy, and I want to help people find strength through that mess, whatever that might look like. And my podcast is Everything's Messy, because it is. And just, helping women especially, but to everybody, to take those moments to take care of themselves, to help lift them up, to give themselves the permission in order to do that. Because like I said, for me, I needed the permission to give myself, to go take care of myself. I needed permission to do that. And just, I love what Heidi said about hope. Definitely, I've always myself known to get out of my own head to go help somebody else. And that what I'm trying to do. I want to help women, find that time to check on themselves, be there for themselves, and finding that strength through the mess, whatever their mess, baby. Everybody has a messy journey. Everybody has something that has propelled them, and they're in the spot that they are today because of the mess. And I think there's strength in that. And I want to hear everybody's mess. I really do.
Well, first off, do I have to own my mess? Because I know that I'm not the neatest person in the world. I'm kind of like that whole notion of the Oscar versus the Felix and all along those lines. So do I have to own my mess as well? Because that has also been problematic in some relationships also. But maybe I have to own my mess as well.
I mean, accountability is part of that mess, yes, and that's where we can maybe take self-reflection and try to go forward and maybe change some of the things or make it different. But it's definitely, like I said, everybody has a story. Everybody's got a mess, and I think I think that empowers people in and of itself. And when they start to verbalize it and talk about it, and they can sit back and go, wow, I really have come a long way, or look what I've done in spite of the mess, that should encourage them to keep going in the things that they're doing. So.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Definitely, Alison and Devon. I'll start off with ladies first. Alison, and actually, y'all may see me jump off. So speaking of mess, I've got to get ready for the job as soon as we get off, and all along those lines. So if you'll just share your own thoughts about your message of positivity and hope, and how you can be reached as well. So y'all might see me off camera for a second, but if we'll start with Alison, and I'm still listening. If Devon will go after that. Hear me. Alison, you were on mute.
I did. I see that. I was on mute. Sorry about that. I was trying. So I hope I've already given some positivity in the podcast today. I try to really support, especially women. They're my main consumers, and entrepreneurial people of all worlds and walks of life. And I built my business to cater towards the small person, place, and thing. So you can find me. I have online classes that are very affordable for all levels of entrepreneurial businesses at repmethods.com. I have workshops. I travel all over the country and speak for businesses. And I also do sales team boot camps, which is a lot of fun. So because I've been a sales trainer and I've been selling for many years, I actually can go into a company and customize, special needs to be able to refocus and build foundations to improve their forms and functions. So my book is available through all major publications, and it's called The Art of Selling. We make order makers, not order takers, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, along those same lines, before we get to Devon and everything, just really quickly, what there's a notion out there, because I've got some friends that are in sales as well, that people are averse to the notion of being a salesperson. I think we're all salespeople to some degree or a notion or another, but I just wondered your thoughts around that, because I do know that there's this stereotype, because when we think of salespeople, we think of like the sleazy car salesman and the sleazy insurance person and all along those lines. So I was just wondering how you go counter to that, because there is this notion of salespeople as being something that we don't do. But I think all of us, including Sarah and Heidi when she was here, and Devon and even myself, have to sell ourselves and sell the things that we are involved in and all along those lines. But I do think there's an aversion towards sales. So I just wondered, how do you counter that?
Before Devon, if you want me to answer that now?
Yes, please.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Because I have a marketing company, and I have a marketing degree, and I love creative, right? So as I began on this journey, I have a mentor. Her name's Katie Wright. And I have a hashtag. It's called 2 Tango Tuesday. You guys can follow it on Instagram. It's super cool because I do shout outs towards other people. So I believe.
You just went off. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It just did something unusual in the mic. I don't know what happened there. It's technology. Technology has a moment of its own.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah just disappeared. That's all right. But Devon, go ahead while Alison is trying to get that together.
Yeah, I can be quick too. I think for me personally, just my message has been to follow my dreams, but also to inspire other people to do the same. After I wrote the book, I spoke in Naples spoke in Naples for an authors event, and just spoke about finding your power. And a lot of that was speaking to just my real life story and becoming a parent for the first time and having to figure out everything on the go, but also just trying to be the best version of myself at the same time. So, my message is to, I love the idea of your podcast, Sarah. I'm going to start listening because that is amazing. I think that is something that people should really flock to. The idea that life is just so messy and, we can find ourselves through that speaks to me in volumes. So, I resonate with that. That message is very, I think, prevalent right now with everything that's going on in the world and how, everyone is just kind of going through it. But just, staying positive, trying to find yourself, trying to just be the best version of yourself through it all. I think is really my message. And if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. My website is Devon Taylor Author. And then I just did an article with, I believe it is USA Daily Times, and just kind of did a little piece with them talking about writing and, putting out your first book. So if you want any tips on how to write your first book, you can check out the article. So, thank you so much, Marc. I really appreciate this opportunity.
No problem at all. Glad to give you all this opportunity, and hopefully all three of you, as well as Heidi, will make a return trip and all along those lines. Alison, I don't know if the mic was cleared out because I couldn't hear you earlier.
I got it. Yeah, it's just a sensitive little sucker.
Yeah, they can be sensitive sometimes. But if you want to just clarify and talk a little bit about that sales background that you were going on before we cut off, and then we'll get ready to.
Well, I just want to give credit where credit's due because I've done a lot of studying, I think, on this, and I am my personal principle is to be an anti-marketer. Like, I hate marketing, right? I have a degree in marketing, but I literally can't. I really don't love Facebook. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just not into all of it, right? My challenge is how do I educate? How do I give of myself? How do I take all this knowledge and empower people and make money? Mm-hmm. And to be a salesperson, it is hard. So I'm using my voice in the best of my ability. And I think one of the best ways that I could do that was through a mentor that I found. There's a company, you're welcome to follow them. I love giving them shout outs, called Strong Brand Social, SBS for short, Strong Brand Social. And the SBS group got me a little over last year with some ads online, and she had this workshop called F the Algorithm, right? Mm-hmm. And I loved that. Like that was me, because I was like, you know what? I hate this stuff. Like, I hate marketing. Like, it's like social media stinks. Like, this all stinks. And the truth is that I want to be a voice. And I want to attract people without being that car salesman that you're talking about. So what Katie teaches me, and now fast forward a year later, is she taught me how to create a brand strategy. She taught me how to work the pillars of marketing. She teaches me still to this day. Like, I pay them a lot of money to help me, to coach me on what am I doing? They don't do the work for me. I'm still the creator. I'm still the one who's bringing the stuff in. But at the same time, they're helping me find that voice, and through my customer, and helping me use that in a value proposition way. And I think that there is a way. So in pillar 1, pillar 2, and pillar 3, and we could do a whole podcast on this if you wanted to, but depending on how you spread your resources is how salesy you come across on all of your marketing methods. And I think that's it's an interesting principle, and it is a choice, right? So only pillar 2, if you want to do some studying, for anybody who's familiar with the marketing, only pillar 2 is the ask. Only pillar 2 says, hey, come buy this book right now. I need you to click. The rest of it is about attraction, not promotion. And I choose to, as a brand, to try as much as possible to stay in the other pillars where I can.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I
Yeah.
definitely appreciate all the three of you as well as Heidi and all along those lines, and do know that y'all are all welcome to make a return trip to both the dinner party and other shows as well. So definitely I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I hope that all three of you and definitely Heidi will come back as well. So definitely, unless anybody's got any closing remarks, I'm going to go out with a commercial of a friend of mine that has actually got some vegan desserts. So they got vegan desserts right here in Raleigh, and all along those lines. It might torture you when you see this commercial. You might go like, "That's too good to be vegan," and all in that space. But
Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, that wonderful. I actually learned so much, and I love. My goal is to never stop learning. I'm trying to soak everything up as a sponge as I possibly can, and just absorb it. Yeah, and connect, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Connection and learning. That's what life is all about. That's what I'm all about. And that's one of the reasons of doing this online dinner party is to bring these unique voices together. So right now I've got it ready to torture these three. Heidi will miss the torture of seeing vegan desserts, because every time I see this commercial, I'm going like, that looks too good to be vegan. But let y'all check it, and y'all can be the judges of it yourselves.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Maria Jones, baker and owner of Very Vegan, a premier mobile bakery specializing in putting a plant-based spin on some of your favorite desserts. Inspired by my own personal experience with my journey with healthier eating habits, I was determined to make comparable items with desirable textures and great taste. We're always experimenting with different flavor profiles and expanding our menu. I enjoy my creative license as well as imparting ideas and requests from my customers. It makes for new and exciting items. Some of our customer faves are the specialty cheesecakes such as the banana pudding with homemade vegan vanilla wafers, strawberry crunch, honey bun, fruity pebbles, peach cobbler, and many others. We also offer moist, rich cupcakes, delectable cookies, decadent brownies, and scrumptious pound cake. Discover how amazingly delicious vegan can be. I am available for orders, or you can purchase my items exclusively at the Black Farmers Hub.